leave a comment with your stories. I want to talk about staking, native staking on Hedera. Some thoughts about it. There's been a lot of conversation in the community recently about this. And I think it's something to be revisited. I think it's had the wrong approach. And when we think about possible, like if we look at the problems the ecosystem faces and possible solutions, it feels more and more so like increasing native staking is it's not that it's a silver bullet, but it is a very direct way to address a lot of problems. It does have downsides, but I mean, we'll get to that. So right now, the staking rate on Hedera is around 0.2%, which is very, very low. And this has, I think, raised a lot of concerns and frustration, because if you look at other top proof of stake networks like Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, Avalanche, they have an average, yield of like, 5%, 5.5%. So in comparison, like, again, if you put yourself in the headspace of somebody looking to invest in a network and maybe they're excited about Hedera and they're comparing those networks against each other, you can earn more money passively on these other networks, right? And there's been some frustration around it. And the first post that I saw regarding this was from Jerry Falsetto in the community. Jerry says, with a very cool kind of a vibe and image here. After 5 years of supporting the network, Hedera real native staking rewards are inadequate. I think that's the right word. It's painful to say that out loud. This right here, I just wanted to take a pause here. This right here, I think that Jerry, has summed up a lot of these last few weeks and months for this ecosystem. I think that these last few weeks and months, and Charles does touch on this in his letter that we'll analyze in a minute here, but this sentence here, I think, really resonated for me. I think that a lot of people are experiencing this. I think that right now there's a lot of stuff that's being said out loud that are necessary truths that are definitely painful to say. And this is one of those things, right? Politely asking the governing council to reevaluate. And I'm 100% in agreement with that, right? And then continuing, Brandon, the HBAR bull, makes this post, right? He says, dedicating to staking rewards is such a no-brainer. The issue is HBAR investors have sacrificed against the backdrop of insiders benefiting massively. And I think that cuts to the heart of this. It's not just about staking rewards. It's about the value extracted by insiders. Not funding staking rewards looks like the powers that be would rather save the resources for themselves rather than benefit the HBAR holder. Not saying that that's the intention, but that's the impression that it gives. The top proof of stake networks have higher rewards, right? I've heard reluctance to raising rewards because they know much of it will go to insiders who hold a lot of HBAR. Let's not make a new mistake because of an old one. And I think this captures and dispels of the main concern of raising staking really clearly, right? People will say, well, let's put staking back to the way it was, 6.5%. And people go, well, no, because that means that people who hold the most HBAR will get the most. Isn't that kind of what's already happening? And don't the people that hold a lot of that HBAR, didn't they buy it with their own money? And haven't they assumed a lot of risk over the last 5 years? And so it does make you think, right? And it does weaken that argument of being against increasing native staking rewards because whales will benefit. I think that no matter what we do, baked into the ethos of crypto is whales benefiting. I mean, even going outside of crypto, I mean, who benefits the most? I mean, so I think that it's really about how do people benefit? And the most direct way to do that is native staking. So that was a great point. He continues, I think staking rewards are a bottom-up approach to token distribution that benefits the HBAR economy's builders in the right way, right? Because a lot of these projects hold their treasuries in HBAR. This is a source of income for them. HBAR revenue generating businesses get more HBAR for staking bonuses, blah, blah, blah. Agreed 1,000%. The philosophy of staking rewards being de minimis because it takes little effort to do so once you have the HBAR is false logic. Now, this, I think, is probably the most important point here, and what I think can get lost a lot of times. This right here. If there's one thing that you take away from the conversation about increasing native staking on Hedera, it's this point here, right? And this flies in the face of Lehman's stance on this, right? This whole de minimis thing is Lehman Baird basically saying that it takes no effort to stake your HBAR, so why get a big reward, right? You go into your wallet, you go into your Hashpack, Kabila, Blade Wallet, Drop Wallet, whatever. You choose a node and you hit a button, and you don't actually, right? Remember on Hedera, you don't actually stake your HBAR, right? You just vote with your account saying, I support this node, and you get rewarded for that. And Lehman's stance on it is it takes no effort and there's no risk. Why should it be a high reward? And I think that this right here hits that nail on the head, right? The philosophy of staking rewards being de minimis because it takes little effort to do once you have the HBAR is false logic. It's the effort put into raising the capital to acquire the HBAR that's important. And again, we have to look at the backdrop of what's happening with insiders. We also have to look at the backdrop of the economy. And also we have to look at the fact that retail pays the bills, right? Swirled Labs can't fund themselves. The foundation can't fund themselves. Hedera can't fund themselves unless people are there to buy HBAR. That's how they fund themselves. They sell HBAR. And I think that it's so important to recognize that and understand that it is not enterprise that is paying the bills, right? It is people that invest in HBAR, hold HBAR, build on this network that are the retail people. This is what is keeping the network alive. These are the people that need to be rewarded for that. And so it takes the concept of de minimis outlined by Lehman. And, you know, I think that this is maybe something short-sighted on Lehman's part. Not being able to foresee kind of the environment that Hedera would be in right now. And so it calls that into question. I think it's right to disagree with it. And I think that when you look at the argument against raising staking, it's not very strong. Really the only argument is, well, if we put staking rewards back up, the HBAR is going to go to people that hold the most HBAR. Again, that's already what's happening. And it's not very equitable in the way that it's being done. I think it's a much more straightforward, fair way to raise the staking rewards. And again, there's another level to this, which is, why can't it be changed to begin with? Why isn't staking rewards baked into the protocol, right? Why is this something that can be changed by the governing council? That's also something interesting to think about, which is, you know, on other networks, this isn't really something that can be changed. It just is baked into the protocol. So is it also the question of, like, do we rethink staking overall? So there's so many different things to think about, so many different angles to this, but I agree with the points from Jerry here and Brandon and so many other people in the community that, yes, we need to take another look at staking rewards. And to Big Man down there, you know, I don't think it should be high, but maybe it should not also be this low. And I think that is the consensus here. I think that, you know, you summed it up perfectly. I don't think people really want crazy staking rewards, but we need a better way to stimulate this economy. And staking rewards is one of the most effective ways to do that. So for me, it's creating a loss of faith in Hedera's commitment to the interest of holders. Essentially, I think that's what a lot of people are feeling. And it makes it more difficult to bring new liquidity in, right? A big appeal that brings new people in is the ability to earn money that in a pretty much risk-free way. And so I think that what a lot of people would like to see, like for me personally, my thought on it is just put it back. Like, why didn't we leave it at 6.5%? I mean, maybe it's unsustainable. Sure. A lot of people can argue that 6.5% is too high, that whales are going to get too much HBAR. But again, that's going to happen anyways, right? We're seeing that happen just currently, right? We see insiders and different things getting, a lot of HBAR. People in leadership at Hedera and all these organizations sell a lot of HBAR. So, not just personally, but like to keep the lights on, right? To pay the bills, to do the work that they want to do, that they need to do. It requires that people buy that HBAR. If there's nobody to buy, if nobody's buying HBAR, Hedera ceases to exist. That's just a fact. And so I think that we really have to understand that, the governing council isn't generating revenue for Hedera. They're not using the network. And the reason that the bills are paid and the lights are staying on and the work is getting done is because people are buying HBAR. And it's not to say we don't know for a fact that enterprises aren't buying HBAR, right? And we don't know for a fact that enterprises aren't paying for transactions on Hedera. What I'm saying is that clearly what the on-chain data, the on-Hashgraph data shows is that unsubsidized revenue is generated by retail, not enterprise. So in that sense, the incentives are just completely unaligned, and we have to make it more attractive for people to come in here and get HBAR. And that's a great point too. If the price keeps dumping, whales will get more anyway. So again, I think that it just, I think that there are very smart people that know the long-term trajectory of Hedera and are very bullish on it. But I mean, again, it goes back to the security of the network. A low price of HBAR makes the network less secure. So there's so many different, ways to look at this. Big Man says, I'm more interested in who's selling. Well, I mean, the people who sell the most HBAR are the people who need to fund operations, right? It's Hedera, it's Swirlds, it's the HBAR Foundation. It's these folks that, and again, nothing wrong with it. They have to do this work. They have to pay their employees. They have to do these things. So that's how a network functions. There's no arguing that that's not going to happen. It has to happen. The issue here, though, is that there's a lack of recognition that the reason that can happen is because of retail, right? And so it's that mismatch, right? Enterprise network that focuses on enterprise and very often has kind of shut down retail that depends on retail. And we're seeing a lot of positive change, right? We're seeing a lot of different change. We talked about the foundation's RFP thing. We talked about all these new changes, Charles letter, etc. But it does feel like it's moving much too slow, and there isn't that alignment. So as you can see, like, it's a very complex topic. That's why I agree with the HBAR bull so much. Is it's this nebulous, complex, tangled topic, but focusing on raising staking rewards, although it might not be the best long-term solution, it's clarity. It's simple. It's a simple solution, right? And the argument against it is not super strong, right? I think that there's no way that we can avoid whales becoming bigger, or those that have a lot of HBAR getting even more, right? We can't prevent that. But because also too, a lot of those people bought it, right? So they're assuming risk. A lot of those people that are whales are probably not in the green, right? They're probably bag holding. And so it would be a shame if they start selling, right? If you have retail whales selling, right? It makes it even more difficult for Hedera to sell, for Swirls to sell, to keep their operations going. So there's all different ways we can go about it. I just think that I agree with Brandon. Staking rewards, raising the staking rewards is definitely a way to not only align those incentives better, it's also like you can look at it as a marketing expense, right? I mean, if you want to market this network to other people, like having a high yield is fantastic. So I don't know. I don't think it's the time to weigh pros and cons. I really think it's the time for action. And I think that this is a really great action to take. So I have to agree. And I mean, behind the scenes, I hope that there's conversations happening. I know that the community is putting pressure on stuff. I'm just kind of talking about what's on social media right here and what people are talking about and just kind of summarizing the info. And I think that the consensus from the community is, yeah, this is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, whatever it might be. But the one thing we do know is here's a simple solution that's straightforward and could have a really powerful effect on the network, right? Big Man also says, I agree it has to happen. I just feel bummed that there is really not a lot of transparency. Like, are they selling to fund operations or to fund pockets? Who knows? Right? That's the problem, right? Is that we don't. And again, that's, for me personally, it's like, are they lining their pockets? Are they running operations? I mean, it is what it is, right? These organizations were given HBAR by the governing council, and there's a lot of good stuff that's happened. So I don't think it's like this horrible thing. What I do think though, is that, when you place too much pressure on the group of people you depend on to stay alive as a group of organizations, you create a toxic situation, which we're seeing now. If the staking rewards were higher, if the price of HBAR was higher, if there was less sell pressure, this whole situation would be so much different. That's the other thing to take into account, right? It's a real struggle for Hedera and these organizations to do the work they need to do when the community is like really railing against stuff and sharing like very legitimate criticisms and placing a lot of pressure. It makes their job harder. So there's so many different sides to it. And again, so many different sides, so much complexity. Where's the simplicity, right? Where's the action? And a lot of people think that it's in raising staking rewards. And so for me, playing a little part in this, my idea, and maybe it's a little goofy, I don't know, but a little trend that started that I think is really cool is what I said is, well, what about a reminder? What about 1 million immutable reminders? Account 0.0.800, that is the account that stores the staking rewards. So how Hedera works is the percentage of staking rewards that goes out is based on the amount of HBAR inside account 0.0.800. The more HBAR that is in this account, the more staking rewards that get sent to people, the percent goes up. There hasn't been HBAR added recently by any of the organizations or Hedera to account 0.0.800. So my thinking behind this is, imagine if we sent thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of transactions to account 0.0.800 with the memo, retail pays the bills. For me, I think that posting on social media and talking and stuff is really important, but as we've been told by Lehman Baird and Hedera and everything, the truth lies on the hash graph. It lies on this network. It's immutable. And I'm seeing tons of people sharing, we've got, hundreds of transactions now to account 800 with this memo. And when we talk about moving the needle, getting attention, putting some pressure on, that can happen on the hash graph. And if it's on the hash graph, that means you can look back at it in the future. And so I think part of this as well is not just about dealing with the issues now, but it's about making sure they don't happen in the future. And I think that in my mind, and again, maybe this is dumb, but I think in my mind is if we look 10, 20, 50 years into the future and we start to have these same problems with the Hedera network with a misalignment of incentives, somebody can go back and go, look at the transaction history on the staking account from July 2024. Look at this nightmare, right? Let's not have this happen again because it happened and we can just see it right here. This is not good. So let's have something to point to in the future to remind ourselves in the network and leadership to not get ourselves in this position again, because tweets disappear, blog posts disappear, conversations get forgotten. But if it's on the hash graph, it's forever. So I think that if you repeat something over and over and over and over and over again, millions of times on a hash graph, I mean, it says something. You think about slicing a tree and looking at the rings, and then you have some of those like crazy rings that are a weird color. It's like immediately your brain goes like, what happened? So that's kind of how I see it. Maybe it's dumb, but it is what it is. But retail pays the bills. That's a fact. You can't dispute it. No one can tell me, no one can tell anybody that retail doesn't pay the bills. And by bills, I'm referring to Hedera and related organizations being able to function and being able to pay their employees and all that kind of stuff. If nobody's buying HBAR, it all shuts down. So that's the important thing, is really keeping in mind what is at stake and what's important. And recognizing that the retail community is more powerful than it thinks. And I think that what this is also about is like also just taking a breather here and stepping back and going like, when you look at the big vision of stuff, I think we're all on the same page. I think we all want the same thing, right? It's just about enacting it and taking